Stephanie White was in Connecticut. We all remember there was some runner-ups, and what happened? The same shit happened again. Runner-up. Blame it on injuries all you want. Stephanie White offense cannot get y'all to a championship. Caitlin can. At the end of the day, Caitlin's system read and react, that can. Guys, get down in the comment section. Let me know y'all thoughts about this, man.
Stop everything! Sophie Cunningham just confirmed the secret the league hoped would never come out. Caitlin Clark didn't just disagree with Stephanie White's system. She destroyed it piece by piece just to play her own style. This wasn't some rookie trying to fit into the pros. This was a once-in-a-generation player battling a coach who showed up with the wrong playbook for the wrong era. Behind those locker room doors, it wasn't just tension. It was a full-on power struggle. The same one that quietly tore apart Indiana's championship hopes before they ever began. And wait till you hear the exact moment it all exploded. Most analysts completely missed it, but when you see how it unfolded, you'll realize Caitlin's injury might not have been the only reason she didn't come back when she did. Listen closely. You're gonna have the ball in your hands a lot. Read and react offense. You're not being told what to do every single time. You're just playing the game you love, flowing freely. That's Caitlin describing why she chose Iowa, her personal code, her freedom plan. Now fast forward to when Stephanie White stepped into Indiana. What did she bring? The total opposite. The rigid Connecticut half-court setup. Slow, structured, and built around DeWanna Bonner's careful, deliberate scoring. Not Caitlin's fast-paced, instinctive flow. And here's the wildest part. Stephanie already knew Caitlin's play style before she took the job. She saw the tape, she knew the hype, yet she still forced her old system on a new-era superstar. That's not coaching, that's ego. Sophie tried to smooth it over, saying they both needed the ball. But the numbers tell the truth. Kelsey Mitchell averaged just 2.1 assists per game, while Caitlin led the entire league with 8.4. These aren't two players fighting for touches. This is a pure scorer paired with a full-court quarterback.
The green light and they can do whatever they want. Where that is very rare to get drafted and be able to control the whole system.
Right. Was CC making decisions like...
Yeah.
With it? Yeah.
As she should.
No way.
As she should, but I also think that
Stephanie treated them like clones, rotating the ball as if Caitlin was just another guard. She ran her off screens like a spot-up shooter, when in reality, she was the offense. And here's where it gets absolutely wild. Stephanie White didn't just misuse Caitlin. She benched her true game by playing her at small forward for entire games. Not a few possessions, not a quarter. Full games. Imagine taking Steph Curry and telling him to stop handling the ball, just stand in the corner and shoot. That's exactly what went down. And somehow it gets even worse. Picture this. That now infamous image from the Fever sideline. Caitlin's body language said everything words couldn't. Her jaw clenched, eyes cold, and the way she turned away mid-conversation told the whole story. That was the Atlanta game, the one insiders now call the breaking point. For months, people whispered about it, but no one could prove what really happened. Until now. Sources close to the team confirmed that moment wasn't strategy talk. It was eruption. Caitlin had just spent 4 straight minutes off ball, touching the rock twice. The so-called Connecticut system was fully in control, and when Caitlin tried to push back, Stephanie didn't adapt. She doubled down. Let that sink in. The #1 pick, the face of the league, the reason every arena was sold out, had to fight her own coach just to play basketball her way. That's not team chemistry. That's a power struggle disguised as coaching. Championship teams build together. This was a war between freedom and control, and one side had to break. Now here's the question that burns. Why did Stephanie fight it so hard? She watched Caitlin at Iowa. 19 points, 8 assists, and plays that broke defenses in half. She saw the deep threes, the no-look dimes, the chaos that left opponents spinning. Yet she still installed a system that stripped away every single thing that made Caitlin Clark Caitlin Clark. And the kicker, that same rigid system made her a runner-up in Connecticut, close to glory, but never enough. Now look at Indiana's playoff run. It's like deja vu. Same story, same heartbreak, one game away. This isn't coincidence. It's a pattern carved in stone. Stephanie White's half-court offense always gets teams close, but never across the finish line.
Clark said, and I shared this before. This is what Caitlin Clark said when joining
The reason why I came here, and that's what she preached to me in the recruiting process. You know, you're going to have the ball in your hands a lot. And I think a lot of my final schools kind of had that same look, but I think the read and react offense that we run was super important for myself. You know, you're making basketball reads. It's not a set. You're not being told what to do every single time you come down the floor. You're just playing the game you love. You're flowing freely. You're playing off your teammates. And that was super, super important for myself. And I think also the past success of what they've done, like it was proven that it was very successful. They're proven that they're a great offensive team.
When the lights are brightest and defenses lock in, her system collapses. Too slow, too rigid, and built to control instead of unleash. Worst of all, it traps generational talent inside a box that was never meant for them. Connecticut couldn't win it all with that formula, and Indiana couldn't either. But here's where the story flips from frustrating to flat-out explosive. Stephanie had a term for Caitlin's style. She called it hero ball. But think about this. She never used that label when Kelsey Mitchell was isolating for mid-range pull-ups. She never benched Kelsey for taking tough contested shots. That double standard says everything. Stephanie wanted Kelsey as her number one option because she fit the Connecticut blueprint. Slow, methodical, half-court scoring. No chaos, no risk. Caitlin, though? She was chaos. Unpredictable, explosive, unstoppable. A walking highlight reel that no clipboard could contain. And instead of embracing that magic, Stephanie tried to tame it. Remember that 38-foot dagger against New York? The shot that sent fans screaming? Stephanie publicly criticized it. The logo threes that broke opponents' spirit? Not within the offense. The full-court lasers that led to easy layups? Too risky. Every move that made Caitlin electric was something Stephanie tried to erase. Then came the shift, right after halftime of that Atlanta game. Something snapped. From that point through the Dallas matchup, Caitlin stopped asking for permission. She took control. She waved off plays, ignored the clipboard, and ran her offense. And guess what happened? Indiana caught fire. The Fever looked unstoppable. The pace faster, the energy higher, and the chemistry finally real. Caitlin's usage soared, her assists skyrocketed, and suddenly the Fever looked like the team everyone had been waiting for.
It is interesting to see how they've grown to be teammates because both of them need the ball in their hands.
Okay, yes, they both need the ball in their hands, but the difference is Kelsey Mitchell don't pass the ball once it's in her hands. Caitlin Clark does pass the ball. Caitlin Clark led the league in assists. What are we talking about here? What are we talking about? What are we talking about? I get it. Sophie is trying to make everybody, she's trying to give this story while making everyone look good as well.
Until injuries hit, they were rolling like a true contender. But that leaves one burning question. If Caitlin Clark's way clearly worked, why did she have to fight so hard just to play her own game in the first place? Exactly. When you draft a generational player, you build the system around them. You sit down and ask, what do you like? What do you want to run? That's how every great dynasty starts. LeBron's teams built around his drive and kick dominance. Steph Curry's Warriors revolved around his off-ball gravity and lightning movement. Luka Doncic's Mavericks. Everything flowed from his pick-and-roll mastery. That's how you maximize greatness. By tailoring the system to the superstar, not the other way around. But Stephanie White? She flipped the script in the worst possible way. She came in with a ready-made playbook, refused to adapt it, and then acted shocked when it didn't unlock Caitlin's full power. It wasn't a chemistry issue. It was a coaching one. Even Sophie Cunningham said it best. This wasn't about Kelsey Mitchell clashing with Caitlin. She's right. These two could have thrived together. Kelsey is the downhill scorer, the finisher. Caitlin is the engine, the orchestrator. That duo should have been unstoppable. But Stephanie's obsession with balance, splitting ball handling duties, forcing rotations, rationing touches, turned a potential super team into organized chaos. Great teams know who runs the show. The 2016 Warriors knew Steph was the heartbeat. The 2020 Lakers knew everything flowed through LeBron. But Indiana? They never had that clarity because Stephanie refused to crown Caitlin as the offensive centerpiece. She wanted equal playmakers, a shared system. Noble in theory, disastrous in practice. When the playoffs hit, that idealism fell apart. You don't need balance when the season's on the line. You need your best player dominating the ball. And here's the part nobody's pieced together until now in the real timeline.
They played Atlanta. Look, watch this. So this is Caitlin frustrated. Caitlin is very frustrated. Now, in this same sequence of this clip, you can see Caitlin Let me pause this. So that is Caitlin yelling at Stephanie. That is Caitlin yelling at.
After that Atlanta explosion, Caitlin forced changes. Suddenly, the offense opened up, the fever surged, and momentum built. They stormed through the playoffs, looking more dangerous every single round. Then the nightmare hit. Caitlin's injury. And when she couldn't return for the finals, Indiana fell right back into Stephanie's old Connecticut-style system. Slow, predictable, suffocating. The same one that always stops one game short. And the result? You could see it the second Caitlin went down. The spark vanished. That fearless, fast-paced energy disappeared overnight. Indiana went from a team that played with rhythm and swagger to one that looked trapped in mud. Every possession slowed to a crawl, passes predictable, movement stiff, and the creativity that once made them dangerous was gone. The difference was night and day. Without Caitlin controlling the tempo, the fever reverted straight back to Stephanie's blueprint. The same methodical Connecticut-style offense that's allergic to momentum. It was all structure, no instinct. And you could feel it. Defenses weren't scared anymore because they knew exactly what was coming. That's the problem with systems built on control. Once the playbook's exposed, there's nowhere left to hide. What makes this even crazier is that Caitlin had already proven what worked. When she took charge, the Fever looked like a whole new franchise. Fast breaks, transition buckets, balls zipping from player to player. The numbers backed it up too. Scoring jumped, assists climbed, and they were finally fun to watch. Fans could sense something special was happening, something bigger than just wins. It felt like the birth of a new era. But instead of embracing that momentum, Stephanie tried to reassert her old order. She treated the playoffs like an experiment instead of a battlefield. Players started hesitating again, afraid to break from the script. And that hesitation, it killed them. Because when the moment came and when they needed a superstar to take over, the system didn't have an answer.
Now, before she gets into the Kelsey Mitchell part, Stephanie White, you knew you were coming to the Indiana Fever. You should already know the system Caitlin wants to play. Why did she have to make changes to your system to play her game? And we also know that this did not go over so smoothly because we saw Stephanie White taking shots at her on TV. We saw the back and forth argument when Caitlin Clark was going off on her in the tunnel during the Atlanta Dream game when they were going into the tunnel for halftime.
By the time the finals tipped off, Indiana wasn't the same team that fought their way there. They were missing their soul. Without Caitlin's pace, creativity, and energy, everything became mechanical. Efficient maybe, but lifeless. And deep down, everyone in that locker room knew it. The Fever weren't beaten by a better opponent. They were beaten by their own system. And that's the part that stings most. Indiana didn't just lose the championship. They lost the version of themselves that actually had a shot to win it all. And here's the truth that no one inside that locker room will ever say out loud. Caitlin Clark had already become bigger than the system itself. The Fever's rise, their ratings, their ticket sales, all of it traced back to her. She wasn't just the player on the court, she was the identity of the entire franchise. And the moment she got hurt, that identity vanished. Not because the team lacked talent, but because they were built to orbit around her brilliance without ever empowering it. Behind the scenes, players started asking questions, quietly but seriously. Why wasn't the offense rebuilt around Caitlin's instincts from day one? Why did they spend months trying to fit her into a box that clearly didn't work? Some even whispered that the front office wanted to avoid the optics of favoritism, as if designing around a generational star was some kind of political risk. That fear of change cost them everything. Think about it. The Fever had the perfect storm, a number. One pick with global attention, a backcourt partner willing to share the load, and a fan base that showed up every night. All they needed was a system that trusted her. But Stephanie White clung to the old playbook like it was a lifeline. Slow rotations, conservative spacing, predictable sets. She tried to outsmart the future instead of embracing it. And when Caitlin started taking matters into her own hands, waving off plays, directing traffic, speeding up possessions, the results spoke for themselves.
Close enough. Ain't that what happened in Connecticut with this same damn offense she was running? Wait. That was the same thing that happened. They damn near got there, but they...
Indiana looked unstoppable. The league finally had a product that felt fresh, modern, electric. Yet somehow, instead of doubling down on that success, leadership treated it like a rebellion. By the time the finals ended, it was painfully clear. This wasn't just a coaching issue, it was an identity crisis. The Fever were trapped between eras, the old guard trying to maintain control, and the new wave demanding freedom. And that's what makes this story bigger than one team or one season. It's about what happens when a once-in-a-generation player collides with an outdated system that refuses to evolve. Something's got to give, and this time, it might just be the coach. And guess what? The cracks are already showing. Word around the league is that Indiana's locker room isn't as unified as it seems. Some players are quietly siding with Caitlin, while others are caught in the middle, unsure who to follow. That's what happens when leadership loses direction. The locker room starts choosing its own. Behind closed doors, agents, assistants, even staffers have started whispering that this offseason could decide everything. If Stephanie White stays locked into her old-school philosophy, the Fever risk losing the one thing that made them matter: momentum. Because once players start questioning the system, it's almost impossible to get that trust back. Remember, this isn't just about X's and O's, it's about power. Caitlin Clark isn't a rookie anymore. She's the face of women's basketball. Every network, every sponsor, every major brand sees her as the future of the sport. And that means she has leverage, real leverage. She doesn't have to play nice anymore if things don't change. Think about the irony. The same league that begged for a superstar finally got one, and now it's struggling to handle what that power actually looks like. You can't box in someone whose entire game is built on creativity and instinct. Caitlin Clark is basketball in motion, unpredictable, fearless, and alive. And any coach who tries to slow her down is only slowing down their own team.
Let me see.
Because those types of athletes, they get to come into an organization, they have the green light, and they can do whatever they want. Where that is very rare to get drafted and be able to control the whole system.
Right. Was CC making decisions like?
Yeah.
With it? Yeah.
As she should.
No way.
As she should, but I also think that
Ooh.
go
Oh,
ahead.
that's crazy. I didn't realize that. She's just young. I just didn't think that.
But when you have a
thing.
generational talent like that, she should have a lot.
The Fever's management knows this too. That's why the front office is quietly reviewing everything, from the playbook to the power structure. Some insiders even claim there have been private talks about shifting the offensive philosophy entirely if Stephanie doesn't adapt. Because at this point, it's not about loyalty, it's about survival. And make no mistake, if Indiana doesn't evolve, someone else will gladly build a dynasty around her. That's the reality of modern basketball. Stars don't wait for systems to catch up, they create their own. The Fever have one chance to get this right, or risk watching their golden era walk out the door before it even begins. And just like that, they lose again. Runner-up, the exact same ending, the same heartbreak, the same questions left hanging in the air. Now ask yourself, was Caitlin's absence really the only reason they fell short? Or did the system simply revert to what it's always been? Good enough to compete, but never good enough to win? Because here's the cold, uncomfortable truth. Stephanie White got the playoff run she wanted. The ball moved the way she designed it. The plays ran exactly by her book. And the result? Identical to Connecticut. Second place. Her system worked perfectly, but not perfectly enough to win. It's the curse of control. Structure without soul, precision without power. Now the Fever's front office faces the biggest decision in franchise history. Do they finally build around Caitlin's fearless read and react chaos? The same style that electrified fans and terrified defenses? Or do they double down on Stephanie's rigid half-court control, knowing it's already failed twice on the biggest stage? The league is watching every move. The fans are louder than ever, demanding answers. Because deep down, everyone knows this story isn't over. Not even close. Caitlin Clark has already proven she'll fight for her system if she has to, and next season, that battle could explode all over again.
Games, and now she gotta change the system and enforce her power. Come on now, you gotta read between the lines on some things.
Mitchell, like those two, it is very interesting to see how that they have. It is interesting to see how they've grown to be teammates because both of them need the ball in their hands.
So tell me, Gaul, does Stephanie finally adapt, or does Indiana risk wasting the most gifted player of her generation? Drop your thoughts below, hit that like button, subscribe, share your take, and I'll see you on the next one.